which for you is tremendous because I know you travel all that stuff.
That's right. Been to California once in my life. I got to make it a little more than that.
Was it Rose Bowl?
Yeah.
Which one was that?
The USC one, 08, 09.
Okay. Okay. There you go. So
Never been to Candlestick, a.k.a. Levi's, or any of those.
you've never been there?
No.
I stayed at a hotel.
Was going to go the final year of Candlestick, did not make it out.
Okay. Well, I've been to the new ballpark.
The actual, like Levi's Stadium or the Giants ballpark?
Giants ballpark.
Giants ballpark.
And in Santa Clara, when we were there for the Cable Car Classic, we stayed right next to the 49ers
Facility.
practice facility. So there. And it was really, when I went up to the offices and your picture was there, I said, "Is he part of the management team?" I said, "No, he's not allowed in." I said, "What does that mean?" I said,
It's like previously a couple days ago when Brandon Ayuk came and embraced Shanahan and Lynch. That was they were announcing I was officially banned.
Yeah, it's just not good, not good. So they're officially in. That's good, and now we move forward with it. It's interesting how I'll give you just a little insight on how certain programs operate in terms of getting information out. So basketball, we're sitting here in August. There are 3 programs in the Big Ten out of 18 that have not released their 24-25 rosters yet. Michigan, Oregon. What's the third one? Because Michigan State just released it. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just Michigan and Oregon. So 2. It's August. Well, you don't know who's on your team?
Yeah, exactly.
Release the roster.
Yeah. You're not hiding anything by releasing the roster. And Michigan has been notorious for not releasing their starters, but it literally, you're not hiding a thing by telling me who is on your roster. I've still got a guess between quite a few.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
Sitting there like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Because Michigan State just did. Because I finished them up the other day. Because I keep checking, like, okay, I want to stay ahead of the game here. Oregon and Michigan have not released their basketball rosters. Now, could I sit there and climb through and see who they're recruiting? I'm not going to do that. Put your roster out there, for goodness sakes. Let's go. That is, that's the absurdity of it. I mean, how do you sit there and not release your roster?
Yeah, literally.
And I don't get that part at all. It's August. Okay. That's crazy. It makes no sense whatsoever. Like I know Vlad Golden is transferred to Michigan and so forth. Oregon, I don't know if that's standard operating procedure for them or not. I mean, it's Dana Altman, for goodness sake. He's been around a while. But I'm just saying, I don't get what the issue is. Usually July 1, everybody knows who they have.
Absolutely.
I mean, Rutgers was, believe it or not, was one of the last ones to release it. You figure with their recruiting class, they'd be out there they would have released it the day those guys signed. Here we go. These guys are out. These are in. Don't worry about it. And they've and Rutgers is almost completely changed over. But that's on the basketball side. Football, day 2 was yesterday of practice. Jack and I were at it for a good chunk of time yesterday. Because of a Spikes game, he stayed longer than I did. And they're off today. They're still in class this week. There's a gear up for finals and so forth. Tomorrow will be media day. And James Franklin will be asked right out of the gate about the 2 players not there. And there's really nothing he can say. There's really nothing he can say. He needs, it, and you just have to, and from his perspective, on the football team, on that part of it, you just go with, you got to talk about the guys that are actually out there for you. And at the moment, those 2 guys aren't out there. So, so it'll be asked, which it has to be asked. So whomever asked the question will not be the bad person in the room.
Right.
It's down. There are certain things that have to be asked, and James expects to be asked. Okay. But then at that point, there's nothing really he can offer. There really is nothing that he can offer beyond just what their current status is with the football team. And that'll be tomorrow. And then the players will get a chance to talk, and there's literally nothing they can offer when it comes to this, and start just talking about the expectations for the upcoming season. To be honest with you, I have never heard of the phrase interim suspension. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know what the interim part means. But every story that's come out, because I didn't ask Greg or anybody about, what the phrase means, but they're on interim suspension to deal with a personal matter, and there's no further comment. Well, and that's exactly the way James is going to be. There's nothing he can comment on tomorrow. So you have to work with what you have. So what do you have? So, I mean, at those 2 positions, let's start with the 2 positions. Abdul Carter was already moved outside anyway, and he then becomes that chess piece that Tom Allen can utilize because of his ability as a linebacker and also as an edge rusher. So on every play, a quarterback's going to have to come to the line of scrimmage and right away say, it's not just identifying the mic for the offensive line in their blocking scheme, but he has to look around and say, okay, before I even look at the safety, I got to find where's 11. So I'll identify the mic. Yeah, I'll identify where the safety is, but I have to also identify where's 11. Is he on the line of scrimmage? Is he off the line of scrimmage? Is he? Yeah. And that's going to be a big part of the chess game with him. Deni Dennis Sutton has all the tools and is poised to have a big season. Now, he has to stay healthy. There's no question about that. Amin Vanover, I've talked about many times because he may not be a star, but he's the kind of guy that wins games for you. It's kind of like you.
That's right.
You may not be a star.
Come through when it matters most.
But you win games for us.
That's right.
trying to think what games you won. Right, no,
Not the big ones.
oh, brutal. But he wins games for you, and he's experienced. He knows how to practice. He knows how to play. That's big. Now, we all know Zariah Fisher's bumped up. Ugh, that's a tough one. Okay. Some of this would be easier to absorb had a guy who, by the way, until he got bumped up in the spring, was having a terrific spring. But back is Smith Vilbert. And I know it seems like ages ago, it feels like ages ago, the Outback Bowl where he had the 3 sacks. But that's what he's capable of doing. And again, before he got bumped up a year and a half ago, he was having a phenomenal spring. Right? So let's see if this training camp allows him to get back in the groove, because that now gives you 4 guys you can count on. Now at this point, who are the young people that might help? Can Harvey help? Can Empoy help? We're going to have to see about that. That part, training camp's going to determine who in that group can help. Maybe be a 5th along the way. Linebacker. We all know Keys isn't there. So what do you do with it? Well, let's start with this part. It's a little different at that spot than what we're talking about at defensive end. Because for the most part, there are times where Tom's going to put 3 linebackers out there, and there's going to be times, and excluding Abdul Carter, there's going to be times he's going to put 3 linebackers out there, and there are going to be times he puts 2. Well, when he puts out 2, Kobe King, Tony Rojas. Okay? But then you got Tyler Elsdon and Dominic DeLuca. Now it becomes an issue once you get to the third grouping of 2, right? Because Keon Wiley's bumped up right now and is, as we all know, out, right? Not practicing right now. And he was really coming on. This guy was going to get himself somewhere into the mix, and hopefully before the season's over with, he can be in the mix again. Keys would have been probably in one of the roles right now, somewhere in that grouping. And then there's Tamir Robinson. So now let's see who develops among a couple of the younger guys to fill those roles of 3s and 4s, because right now Keys would be in the 3s and 4 category right now, fighting to be in the 2s when they go to 3. When they're going 2, okay, if it's 2, he's in the 3 group. He would have been in the 3 group. They go to 3s, okay, now he might be in a mix fighting for a 2. So that's depth. They've got guys that are experienced and can play. You can absorb certain things, like absorbing an injury, even though this is a completely different deal, and I don't know what the deal is, and I'm not going to ask either. It's just certain things you don't walk around. Hey, by the way, what's the deal with?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not how that's not how things work. If people want to volunteer something to you, fine, but you don't walk up to some in the football program. So what happened to blah blah blah? No. Okay.
Nope.
It's. Now there are people watching this saying, "I'd ask."
That's why they're watching,
right?
That's why they're watching.
Yeah, I'd ask.
Yeah.
Okay. Guess what you'll be asking tomorrow? Why wasn't I invited back?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this has nothing to do with the power of access or anything like that.
No.
You have to understand what what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. Okay.
Yeah. And there's also reason behind it. Like, there is reason behind being protective of things. It's not just not letting the public knowing. It's trust issues too. have the full trust as a player that your coach isn't going to spill information out that you don't want out, and vice versa.
Oh, and by the way, there's full trust that if Jack and I are standing there, we're not going to do it either. We're not going to do it either.
Absolutely.
Right? That's part, because we're getting everything that we need to do our job because James is allowing us to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay? And so I've always treated, and the fans may not, there's a certain segment of the fans that may not like this part.
I think most understand it. Yeah, I think most understand it.
I think most understand it. There'll be some that don't. But the old saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, that's practice.
Sure.
Yeah, there's certain things we can talk about along the way. I talked a little bit about, some of the really good things I've seen from basketball. I mean, I've been, I don't know how many basketball practices I've been to this summer. 25, 30. Well, the end is 7 weeks, 35. I'd say between 25 and 30 of them I've been to. I've probably missed 7 or 8. Maybe 9 I've missed. That's about it. I mean, I took a week off. But I've seen 25 to 30 practices. Right. So I've got a pretty good feel about where they are, what they can do. That way, when they get to training camp, I've got a huge head start on what guys can and in times can't do. And then you can look at that when they get to training camp and say, okay, stayed the same, got better, fell back. Okay? Right? And that's what gives you the gauge. And the same thing with football. So whatever the situation is, I don't know. And to be honest with you, I don't need to know. I'm just going to I always concentrate on who's out there. Okay? Who's out there? And then, like the rest of you, I'll find out as time goes as to what it is and what it isn't. And that's why when I talk about people that can step up, I'm just talking about the people that are out there who can step up. I mean, it's not like they haven't recruited at linebacker. They have. It isn't like they haven't recruited rush ends because they have. Just like they recruited wide receivers. Suddenly I'm out there and Peter Gonzalez is out there. Tysier Denmark is out there. Now, Josiah Brown, who was actually out there in the spring but didn't do a lot, now is out there and participating. So, they're out there now. They're part of the mix. And we'll see how it plays out. Now, they've had 2 practices. And they won't go again until tomorrow evening. And they'll go tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then Wednesday will be an off day. Which worked out pretty well because I have a charity event.
Nice.
We're good. I have a charity event that day. So I have to go to Selinsgrove to do that. And there's a lot of things about, there's a building process that happens with this. That there's a sense of urgency in building. And look, you're doing installs right now. But again, when you look at the spring, Andy, Tom, and Justin, as new coordinators, were able to install a lot of what they want to do in the spring. The players were able to go into the offseason and understand what was installed. And then when they go about their practices and their workouts, they were able to implement it then. Now you get to this point. In this point, a lot of installs should be a review. I mean, these guys have now been there. I'm talking about the coaches on the staff. They've all been there 6 to 8 months. Okay? Not 6 to 8 weeks, but 6 to 8 months. So everybody has a pretty good idea of what is expected and why. And now, when they hit this weekend and into the early part of next week, they're going to then hit at high gear what's going on in practice, because you've got until maybe, I don't know, let's pick a date, somewhere between August 15th and maybe the 20th, somewhere in there, where you're like, okay, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, who's going to be on the travel team and who's going to be on the developmental team. And that's where you are. For Drew Aller, Bo Perbula. I mean, I'll always give you one. Early on, you're running things, but then I'll tell you, when I feel like it kicks into a different level is when they yell out, "All right, blitz period." It's like, okay, here we go. Let's see how everybody handles it on both sides. And that's something that you look at when you watch a practice. Yeah, there's a winner and a loser for the most part on every single rep. On every single rep, there's a winner and a loser. And it's hard when it's the same team. And when I mean it's the same team, they're all Penn State players. So a Penn State player wins on the rep, a Penn State player loses on the rep. Now, can you go through an entire practice where there's a good mix of the winning and losing of reps on both sides, and that's where you feel good about where you are as a football team, because a guy may lose a rep one time and then win the rep the next time, because you're not out there scrimmaging against somebody else. You're out there practicing against, your guys. And that's always the toughest part in college football.
Absolutely.
It's like, for example, basketball. I have no idea who they're going to play in their, I refer to as the double secret probation scrimmage, which I admit I've attended. But you sit there and go, okay. At least you're against somebody else, and you get a feel for playing against somebody else and what they're doing and how you react to it. Okay. College football's not like that, as we all know. College football is, okay, it's West Virginia. Get on the bus. Here we go. It's like we're going to play a game. Not playing anybody else. And that's a big difference in it. So, yeah. So there, it's 2 days down. Tomorrow's media day. Now, are you going to media day?
It's possible. Yes.
It's possible.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it possible? I mean, what do we have to pay you to go there?
No.
What are we doing?
No, don't have to pay me.
Okay.
It's gonna be multiple places tomorrow.
You have to be multiple places tomorrow?
I believe so.
You have to be multiple places tomorrow? You're that popular?
I must be.
Ay. Wow.
And trying to squeak in at least 45 minutes of leisure activity of running over to the National Trading Card Day in some point.
Oh, I do know you want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Heading over to
that part I do
support our local shop here.
Oh, I understand that.
Absolutely.
That part I understand. I'll be overworking.
I'll be doing the same thing before then.
I don't know.
Trying to work, doing the best, giving the college effort.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, at the Olympic Games, Hideki Matsuyama leading in golf. They're not. I think he just finished up his second round. Not everybody is done yet. But he leads by 2 shots. And Simone Biles won the all-around last night. Suni Lee, the bronze. It was a really. I watched a little bit of it. It was overall an excellent performance by Simone Biles, but not on the balance beam. She had to overcome that last night. And she won it in 16. We know 21 was a problem. And then, has come back and won it again in 24. So, I mean, it's remarkable to do that all-around gold 8 years apart. I mean, that's unbelievable because she's 27 now. I think it's great the Bears let Jonathan Owens go.
I agree.
I mean, he was there. Her husband was
Absolutely.
there. And once she's done on Monday, if I'm him, I hightail it back and get to camp.
Get to camp immediately.
The Bears did play last night. They
sort of. Game.
Yeah, they stopped the game in the third quarter because of storms. Okay.
I would not be shocked if Brett Rippon gets a shot somewhere at some point. I think the few moments we've seen him, I think he's played good, not great, but I think he's played well enough that he could probably.
You mean a shot with the Bears? Or?
With some, but not the Bears. No, that's Caleb Williams' team. But I think somewhere down the road, there's a chance he's going to start for a team. I think he's might be able to outplay one of the bottom 32. I think the few times we've seen him, I think he's played good. But again, not great.
I saw a little bit of it last night.
Yeah. I think Rippon has...
Saw a little bit of it last night. I mean, he was fine.
Yeah. I think he's a guy. He played in Denver. Played okay as a starter.
Yeah.
I think he'll get the. There's guys starting in the NFL right now that have no business starting in the NFL. A couple guys.
Well.
So I think there's a chance that he gets a shot at some point.
Well, we'll see. That's a hard call because the Bears would have to release.
Oh, the Bears. Yeah, exactly. Which they wouldn't do initially.
Which they may not want to do.
No, because you need to see what Caleb Williams can do. Obviously, we've seen a lot of guys hyped in college football that have come to the NFL and have not lived up to the moment. It's happened.
The preseason, there are 3 games.
Yeah, you don't get enough.
And I don't know if for example, a Caleb Williams is going to
at least 2 of the 3
play.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't think he's going to play. That's just me.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so nobody gets a read on any of that stuff.
Nope.
They also don't practice anymore in such a way.
And look,
enough. I completely agree. No more 2-a-days.
Absolutely.
I got that part. I mean, when Don Shula took over the Dolphins in 1970, they did 4-a-days. And they went 10-4 that year. I think they made the playoffs. I think they lost to the Raiders in the first round. And that's the first time the Dolphins as a program
made the playoffs.
Broke 500. I mean, they weren't even from 1966, 67, 68, 69. They weren't even close to 500. But 4-a-days? That's crazy. And you know what? So that part I get, but I realize what they're doing with the rules in terms of the collective bargaining agreement. But I feel like the first 3 weeks of the season, and this goes for college football too, where that's where you're really getting your tackling in.
Yeah, there's no question.
I feel like the tackling in college football and in the NFL, for the most part, not across the board, but for the most part, is a work in progress. This is where let's give some credit where credit is due to Michigan. You look at the last 2 years of Michigan football as a defense, from right out of the gate until the end. They were a really good tackling team. You got hit, a lot of times you went down.
I agree.
So, it's this NFL and college the same way. That's why, you look at a game like Georgia Tech, Florida State, which will be the opening game in Ireland. And that will be, 3 weeks from tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yep.
Okay. It's a good game right out of the gate, just like Penn State, West Virginia is a really good game out of the gate. But to me, that bolsters the argument of easing your way into a schedule as opposed to a blockbuster right out of the schedule.
Yep.
And when I mean easing in, you're still playing teams that can beat you, but at the same time, it gets you into the rhythm of playing games because you don't have preseason games.
Right.
Now, the NFL is preseason games they aren't using. There.
I think even just looking at the Olympics shows how much you need at least a camp where you are going to develop. Because you look at prime example, just looking at USA basketball. You'll get to play South Sudan, down 14 at halftime first time they see them. Second time, it's not a close game. I think it shows just how much, especially when you bring guys together that haven't played together. I think that's the other part of it. You need to be able to develop that chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's why I look at the tackling part of it. I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter. High school football, at least high school football has a scrimmage.
A scrimmage, yep.
Right? But I feel like the first couple of weeks are work in progress on tackling.
First week
work in progress with college football on tackling, work in progress for the most part in the NFL on tackling. And then finally, once we get to mid-September, things start to settle in and football really looks like football again. Did you see the kickoff rules? And your thoughts?
Not good. It's just, I don't understand it. I don't, especially the onside kickoff rules. You're completely ruining the surprise element, which is what makes sports exciting.
See, that's the part I don't get.
No.
I mean, I realize we'll talk about,
if I'm a pitcher and I tell the batter I'm throwing him a fastball, what's he going to do? He's going to knock it 500 feet the other way.
I mean, Bill Cowher onside kick against the Cowboys in Super Bowl 30.
Sure.
The Saints opening the second half with an onside
Andy Reid
kick
against the Cowboys.
Andy Reid did that years back. I mean, it's like,
Yeah, and that's...
I mean, what do you want? What's going to get to? Is it going to get to where you walk up to the line of scrimmage and say, hey, by the way, we're throwing it out?
Yeah. Get your guy over there.
It's like...
literally, it's just... It's unbelievable.
It's wrong.
It's very wrong. And it's back to the point, I made yesterday and made it a couple times. I think
if you want to eliminate the kickoff and just put the ball at the 25, then just make the rule.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to see... Gone are the days of... You will not... the old saying that records are made to be broken. There's a lot of records in sports that, in my opinion, aren't going to be broken. You could add another one to the list, and that's Devin Hester's 34 returns for touchdowns. I'm not seeing that anytime soon.
Last night, the returns, I think the longest return got up to the 34-yard line last night. But that's a game.
Yeah.
And by the way, here's a small technicality. There will be moments that you'll be allowed on the kickoff team to have 12 players on the field. You may ask how. If it is lousy, windy conditions, you can bring out a holder.
Got to hold the tee,
right? And can hold it. And guess what? At that point, the person is then not allowed to participate in the play.
I was wondering if there was a rule where they could stretch it a little bit.
Yeah.
That was what Bill Belichick mastered at. He never cheated. Well, almost went that far. Stretched the rules as much as he possibly could because he knew the rules. I think that's the biggest, the easiest way to put it. I think he knew a lot of rules that so many people did not know, and it came back to haunt him because Mike Vrabel did it to him in the playoffs with the full starts, taking several seconds off the clock.
That's right. Yeah.
But there were so many rules Bill Belichick knew that so many other people did not know.
Well, that's his job.
That's
His job is
absolutely
to know the rules.
Absolutely.
James is always
1,000%.
James is always asking officials
Absolutely
about this rule, that rule, this technicality, that technicality, because he wants to make sure he's fully versed on what's going on.
And great coaches do. There's no doubt.
He's always asking about that. It is
certain coaches,
but this kickoff rule thing is.
I don't get it.
I'm watching it carefully, and it's not because I'm not watching it carefully because of how it affects an NFL game. I'm watching it carefully because I'm concerned that college football is going to adopt it.
Absolutely, I agree.
I don't quite understand what the purpose was behind this, because I thought they were trying to keep contact on high collision contacts down to a minimum. And now they're doing this. I mean, they were getting close to moving it out of there. And nope. Now you've got this where they're trying to encourage returns. Now, I believe if you kick a touchback, it's at the 30-yard line. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I just kick touchbacks and then go from there.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what the game has become at this point.
Yeah. Just start from the 30-yard line. Who cares? Because I know kickers in the NFL have been working overtime on placement. I will say this, for the most part, there have been some Ohio State kickers that were usually pretty good about getting that ball down to about the 1 or 2 yard line. Now, this is pre-fair catch. Before they put the fair catch in, their entire idea, which Penn State also used for a long period of time, was to get the ball down to about the 1 or 2 yard line with the idea that I will tackle you at the 18 or 19, which then means that is a plus 6 yard win for you. So that the touchback at the 25, I get you at the 18 or 19, so I'm plus 6 or 7. My defense has got plus 6 or 7 behind me now. And Ohio State was good at that. Penn State's been very good at that. But then when they put the fair catch in, it's just like, okay. And you could always, there's certain guys that no matter what, even though the fair catch is there, will look at it and say, here I go, I'm taking the ball. Hey, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
No, now's the time. Look at the clock. Just take the fair catch, no time off the clock, let's go. I mean, I've seen that happen at the end of games. I'll be sitting there like, okay, wait a minute. There's 32 seconds to go. Okay. Why don't you just take it to 25 and start at 32 seconds? Said, I'm going to take it, and now suddenly it's down to 26 to 27 seconds. Oh, and I got stopped at the 21. Okay. That's hero ball.
I have seen teams get helped out heavily, and especially the NFL, where a guy runs out of bounds with 55 seconds left in the game and no timeouts. So there you go. You get free time, and then the guy returning the punt runs back 10 yards and takes 10 seconds off the clock. Mm-hmm. I've seen it a million times.
Exactly.
And it just makes no sense.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what you said. It's hero ball. That's literally what it is.
Hero ball.
Yep.
I see basketball players taking it. It's, down one. I think I'll take a 30-foot three. What are you doing? You're down
You're
one.
down one.
Okay?
Yep.
Right?
Down one, and you are poised to have the final shot. There's no question. So you're not going up two with the shot clock winding down where they get another chance to tie or win. Yeah, you're going for the win on that spot. You don't need a three.
So I got to give you one, an old Al McGuire story. You'll love this. Lefty Drizel told this story. And McGuire is coaching Belmont. Can't remember what the full title was. And I think Lefty's at Davidson. So I think it's just Belmont now, but Al's coaching them. So Lefty says he looks at the roster. This kid's from St. Louis. This kid's from Detroit. This kid's from Dallas. Like, jeez, where are they getting all these kids? So they start poking around a little bit, like talking to the players. And he says, "You're from Detroit." I don't remember like you playing in Detroit. No, actually, I'm from the Bronx. Oh, and he talked to the next guy. So you're from St. Louis? He said, "What brought you to Belmont?" He goes, "No, I'm from the Bronx." Well, he went through and he found out, like, he went up to Al. He said, "Al, you've got Detroit, St. Louis, Dallas, Washington, right? Atlanta, all listed on your roster here." He says, "All those," he says, "Is that where they're all from?" He goes, No. He says, "All the guys are from the Bronx." He said, "I just went into the Bronx and got a bunch of guys to come down here and play." He said, "Well, why are you doing it?" He says, "Yeah, it just looks good on the roster." Now, I don't know whether Al put out his roster in July or not, but they're all from the Bronx. He said, "We just didn't think it would look good to have them all listed as being from the Bronx."
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong about that. Like,
he's not wrong.
Every player's from the Bronx. Okay.
You're thinking, man, you don't broaden your recruiting too far, do you?
And Lefty Drizel's like, okay. Guess it was made easier. They're all from the Bronx. You can't create guys like that anymore.
No.
I mean, you can't. He did the NCAA tournament game in Providence against Penn State in 1996. And I had to do the pregame show with Jerry. And I come back to the table, and I was working with Brian Allen at the time. And Al McGuire comes up to me, and he says, he doesn't know my name, but he knows I'm with Penn State. He says, "Where's your analyst?" And I said, "He's right over there." He goes, "Great." So Al sits down in essentially my chair, so I can't sit down. And he's asking Brian about it. He says, "Well, tell me about this guy. Tell me about that guy." Now, this is, okay, we have a half-hour pregame show. So we're 45 minutes away from tip-off. And we're the first game of the night. Okay, I don't think we're the last game. I think we're the first game of the night. And we're like, I'm saying the thing, wow. Okay. So Brian tells him about this guy. He tells him about Secunda. He tells him about Lisicky. He tells him about Danny Earl. Right? Tells him about Calvin Booth. Tells him about Matt Gaudio. You know, that was the starting lineup for Penn State then. Right. And so he gets up and leaves. I said, "Geez, that was interesting." He says, "Steve, you didn't know a single thing about Penn State." Well, come to find out, that's how he always did it. That's how he always did it. He would pull aside the radio analyst, who 9 times out of 10 would be a former player, and would ask them, "Tell me about this guy. And that's how he prepared for it. Now, once the game starts, you do the game.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Right? You do the game.
Yeah.
And I think, and I know what he was looking for. Like, what does he do? He doesn't want the background on, Danny Earl comes from New Jersey, and Danny Earl was the third-team All-USA Today selection, right, which he was, right? That's not what Al wants, or wanted. He wanted to know, like, how does he play? What does he do? What's his style of game? Okay. Because once the game starts, you then just do the game. You can. I was talking with Chris Wheeler yesterday, did not say hi to you again.
That's a shame. That's a shame. He and Tom McCarthy both. We go way back with all of them.
That's one of the reasons why he didn't ask.
Ah.
So, and we're talking about, look, you have to prepare certain things when you do a game.
Sure.
And so I'm talking about the rosters and things like that and preparing, like, I'm still waiting on Oregon and Michigan, for example. So, how many 20-point games do you have? How many double-figure games? Kind of establish a career. What's your career high in points and rebounds? That way, when it's needed, you have it. Right? You're not going to sit there in a game and, he scores the first 4 points of the game. You say, hey, by the way, his career high is 29. No. Okay. Right. What, you think I've never heard that before?
Oh, I've heard quite a bit. I've heard pretty much all of what you said about Dan Earl immediately.
Right.
I've heard that in a broadcast 5 minutes in a lot of times.
Yeah. But you do the game. Like, where's the ball? What's the score? Now, if there's a moment to add in something that fits with what we're seeing,
sure.
Okay. Right? That's why, even in baseball, you can get bogged down. And you notice I'm noticing less and less. I'm noticing less reliance on numbers in baseball broadcasts. Now, ESPN, no. ESPN's gone all in and over the top on it, Sunday Night Baseball. But Jason, because of Sirius XM, I can listen to a lot of baseball broadcasts. I never hear references to war.
Good. Honestly, good.
Right? Used to, not anymore. I do hear, the number I hear more than anything else is I do hear a little bit about OPS, and I hear a little bit about WHIP, which is walks and hits per inning pitched. Okay. Which is, that deals with base runners. Those are the only two I really hear about. I don't hear about all the other, except when you're watching an ESPN broadcast, they're like, wow, he throws 32%. Oh, for God's sakes. Just tell me what he's throwing now. Okay? You can tell me what pitches he throws, and when he gets out there, what his heavy reliance on. Hey, look, he throws fastball, slider, curve. All right? Out pitch is probably considered the slider, okay? Or the out pitch is the fastball, whatever it may be. And he probably throws more sliders than curveballs. Okay, now we're done. Okay, let's now see how he attacks this hitter. He may look at that hitter and not throw a single slider because that hitter hits sliders. But I'm hearing less and less reliance on numbers because now with the pace of the game, the 20s, was it 18 with nobody on base, 15 with somebody on, I'm sorry, 15 with nobody on base, 18 with somebody on base. The game's moving more, and people are describing action now.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Very good. Absolutely.
Okay?
They need it.
Because I'll tell you one final thing. I'll tell you exactly what I've told my broadcasting class over the years. I said, numbers are great. You have to be able to use them. I said, early in my career, I was number this, number that, number this, number that. Okay. Because I wanted to show the entire world I was prepared and ready to go and blah, 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 blah. He says, as time goes, you realize the importance of telling everybody what's actually happening out there.
Absolutely.
And then if you have a supplement for a number, slip it in there because the number backs up what you're talking about. Okay? I said, action is always paramount, the ability to describe it. And I think that's now it's not like graphics aren't important or things like that. But for example, the only one I see that goes overboard on this now, ESPN goes way overboard. When they do Sunday Night Baseball, I'm sitting there going, what is this? Where are the runners?
That's
right? Why don't you tell me where the fielders are?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay? Because the outfield can shift over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You can sit there and say, hey, by the way, Tyler O'Neill's way off the line and left. Okay. Hey, by the way, they got a gap in left center field.
And that's what I think made fucking McCarver so good. And that is.
But Chris Wheeler told me about McCarver. He talked about McCarver, and he was telling me that he's the one that really got McCarver. He finally said McCarver would come out prepared with all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and Chris told me that when he was working with Tim, he finally said, Tim, you're the one that had the mask on and saw the entire game.
Absolutely. Yeah.
From that perspective. He says, just do the game the same way. He says, tell us what you are seeing because you have the same perspective. You're just higher up now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where McCarver did, and that's where Tim changed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? When he was working on the Phillies network with Chris got him to change to then just talk about like what he saw.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't be prepared. Who's this guy? It's Barry Bonds. Oh, really? That's kind of an imposing guy. It wasn't that bad. McCarver was great at it.
He was, yeah.
He was absolutely phenomenal at it.
Yep. 0-1 World Series, I think, sticks out to me above all. He called the last play of the game perfectly.
Oh, yeah. Well, you started about the infield where they were set up.
Rivera on the mound, throws inside, a lot of broken bat, flares.
Yep.
Look what happens.
And Luis Gonzalez hit a broken bat flare.
Flares it into,
into shallow center field, and the Diamondbacks won the World Series. And since 2000, the Diamondbacks have as many World Series championships as the Yankees. All right, so